can you take that course without being on the team, or is that's essentially an ethics bowl class?
We're going to do cases and a couple basic ethics bowl books, and I'll do some theory myself, but we're going to do cases mostly. So I really want to design this to be about ethics bowl and learning ethics through preparing for the event.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Okay, so okay, Iris 4, teaching an ethics bowl is a course. Okay, it's been running for years now. That's wonderful. It's great to have some experience in the room, geared to become your ethics bowl team. Wonderful. Okay, hearing more about assignment variety. Well, hopefully we'll be bringing that. Okay, so it's after 12 here, but I guess 2 on the schedule. So we'll go ahead and get going. So this session is going to be dedicated to Ethics Bowl as a class. My name is Rachel Robison-Greene, and I co-coach and teach a class with my colleague Mike. You want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Mike Ashfield here, also assistant professor of philosophy at Utah State. I co-coached for the first time last year, and it was a steep learning curve for me, but grateful to be able to do it next to Rachel, who has as much experience as anybody could want from a head coach, having done. If you don't know her, she's done basically every aspect of the activity from competing as a student to then writing cases as a grad student to organizing and coaching and moderating at basically every level. So yeah, I feel very fortunate to have been brought on board by Rachel and with her experience. And coaching has been a ton of fun. So we're excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Okay, so I thought that what we do in this session, as far as the material we're presenting, is I'll talk about sort of our trajectory to get here, the Utah State trajectory, and then we're going to share with you what we're doing now in our course, and then we'll open it up for some discussion and hear from you about what you're doing or what questions you have. So, um, all right. Um, so I think for us, one of the biggest challenges that we faced is getting started moving from an extracurricular activity to a class for credit. Uh, so I'd coached for many years, more than a decade, um, just doing things as an extracurricular activity. And so I faced all of the challenges that you face there, recruitment and so on. But then we were lucky enough to be able to get this as a class, and I'm seeing this as a trend throughout the country. More and more teams are going to Ethics Bowl as a class, and it might be an interesting conversation to have how this affects the bowl in general. I mean, I'm inclined to think that the teams that have classes have kind of an advantage because there's some accountability built in for the students. But I think that there are some unique challenges that are posed by transitioning from an extracurricular to a class. The biggest one for us, I think, is getting students to internalize that it's not an extracurricular activity anymore, and that preparation is now actually not just appreciated, but required. Um, so we had students not completing assignments and just hoping, and maybe in the first year this actually bore out for them, hoping that we would be super, super lenient. Because, hey, what really matters ultimately is just the day of the competition, right? And it became super hard for us because our team actually won their region, and yet there were students that were not doing their assignments, and so that was challenging. Um, and then another challenge has to do with recruitment because you would use maybe a different set of recruitment practices when you're trying to get students to join an extracurricular than you would if you're trying to get them to enroll in a class. So I'll give you some examples of what I mean there. So one challenge has to do with just the people that are going to enroll in the class. And so you need to be thinking as you're like, if you're thinking about crafting a class and you're going to put it through curriculum committee or whatever, um, you've got to be thinking about what your goals are, what your sort of philosophy of coaching is, and what team you're trying to build. So if, for example, you're thinking, I am going to build the best team possible, then what you're probably going to want to do with your course is make sure that it requires instructor approval to sign up so that it's not just whoever, right? If instead what you're trying to do is maximize participation so that there are lots of students in the class and a lot of them are getting the benefits of participating in the bowl, then maybe you open it up to a wider range of students. But then you have to think about the constraints on participation that are posed by your region. So for most regions, this might even be by rule at this. In fact, I think it is by rule at this point that it's the case that for regions, any given region can only have two teams from a school sign up, and the only condition under which they can have a third sign up is if the third would be helpful for like preventing there from being a buy round, right? Maybe a team dropped out or whatever, and a third team can step in at the last minute. And so if you have a large class, then you need to be thinking about what to do with the people who don't end up competing. And there are ways of dealing with that. I mean, we haven't been lucky enough to have that kind of enrollment yet, but what Mike and I have been brainstorming about is having students just serve research functions on the team. I know some people do that even when it's just an extracurricular activity. And that's actually, many students really like that because they're scared of public speaking, but they want to participate in helping to construct the arguments. Okay. So another challenge you'll want to think about is how many credit hours your course should be. This is one that we faced. So in our first semester offering it, it was essentially a 1 credit hour pass fail course. But and that matches maybe goals pertaining to like, okay, if what you're thinking is, oh, I've been offering this as an extracurricular for a while, it sure would be nice to give these students some credit for it. Then, that seems good. They get 1 credit. But the problem is that actually doesn't match how much work the students are doing. So it seems like the students are doing way more work than a 1 credit hour course would warrant. So it seems like once you've put the course on the books, then you're sort of on the hook for what that means. And then it seems like it's not fair if you're requiring students to be preparing more than the credit hour designation suggests. So we changed from a 1 credit hour course to a 3 credit hour course, and we moved away from a pass-fail designation. And now we actually require pretty rigorous assignments and things like that. It provides some accountability, and it just makes sense. If the students are getting 3 credit hours for it, they should be putting in the work. Another challenge that I'm sure that a lot of you who are thinking about putting together a course are thinking about is, well, how do I get administration and colleagues to offer to agree to offering the activity as a course? Mike and I do this course for overload. It is probably, so in addition to the courses that we teach just as part of our regular contract. So if it might be pretty hard to get your school to allow you to offer this for load, if only for the reason that it doesn't fill up, at least in our experience. Maybe some of you have different experience, but it doesn't fill up quite as much. And so colleagues may be, teaching courses with large enrollments while you're able to teach a pretty small course for load. So as you're thinking about it, one thing you might want to think about is offering the class under an experimental number. And I'm just thinking here, lots of schools have this. Special topics or independent study so that you're seeing how it's going to work out before you actually run it through the curriculum committee. Another challenge is determining what your course number should be. If you want it to count for an elective, you might need it to be upper division. Our course is upper division, but I know some schools, some of my colleagues at other institutions offer it as lower division. And then that's challenging too, because once your course is upper division, you've got to be thinking about what kind of rigor it should have and what kinds of readings they should be doing alongside of it. Okay. Then there's the question of whether students need to be enrolled in the class to participate. So the reason that this comes up is some students will be returning, and they can only take the course so many times for credit. I think we have it set up so you can take the course 2 times for credit. But some students will be on the ethics bowl team for 4 years. So how do you navigate that? My thinking is that if you want your team to be really good, you need to allow for students uh, to participate without being in the class.
More the reality is so that the new answer to
Robison?
right to make sure that she's actually being honest and then transition to questions that you don't know the answers to see if she's
Hey,
interesting
Effie,
information that will be useful.
thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no
sorry.
problem. It happens. I think
I,
everyone has been that person.
well, and I had difficulty signing on. I've been trying to log on for some time. So I'm just
Hey, glad
here
you
and I
made
apologize. I
it.
apologize for being late.
No worries.
Um,
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This is Ethics Bowl as a class,
it
right?
is. It is. Yep. I was just talking
Fantastic.
through some of the early challenges, and we're going to get through the boring stuff here in a minute and show you our course. So,
Fantastic. Thank you.
great. Uh, okay. Another thing to be thinking about is what the best day or time is for scheduling. So it's probably not good to schedule this class at the same time as in the early mornings or I mean in that morning slot that primo morning slot between like 9 and noon. You're just going to be competing for against other classes that students actually need to take. And there's the question of what to do after the competition because the Ethics Bowl only lasts for so long. In the semester, ours is over by week 12 this year. And so what do you do for the rest of the time, if anything? We've found a couple of challenges for course design, and then I'll be quiet and let someone else talk. The challenges for course design that we've encountered, the biggest one, this is true whether you're offering Ethics Bowl as a class or whether you're doing Ethics Bowl activities within the class, is the free rider problem. Because this is a group activity, there are going to be some people that try to get away with doing essentially no work and still somehow managing to get a good grade or go to the competition. I've coached many activities over the years where you have these free riders who really what they want to do is go on a university funded trip. And if they qualify for nationals, then they get to go on a university funded trip, but they just sort of rely on other people's work to get there. And then the free rider problem becomes more pronounced when when it's actually a course because, other people are getting grades based on other people's work. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. When it becomes a course, you now have to evaluate rather than just provide feedback. And you have to make sure that the students are doing the work in a timely manner. Because I think that anybody who's coached has probably encountered this tendency that some students have to do the bulk of the work immediately before the competition. And you want to make sure that they're not doing that just because they'll be better at the competition if they're not doing it immediately before. But also, if it's a class, then they need to be pacing themselves the way they would in a class. Okay. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk through our course. So give me 1 second. So
And
we're
I
doing.
have it. Go ahead. Sorry, I have it queued up here too if you run into problems, Rachel. But go ahead.
Okay. Have I given you sharing abilities or?
I seem to have sharing ability. So
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and share your screen? I was wondering, Mike, you want to since you've done a lot of work on the course schedule, do you want to talk through the course schedule, how we're planning on doing things?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
This is just the landing page on Canvas. And our syllabus is still a work in progress, but do you want me to start with the schedule and then sort of connect that to the assignment descriptions a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
Okay.
comfortable with that. Great.
Yeah. With a view to sort of trying to make some good use of the first couple weeks before the cases drop, we begin, and we tried this last year and had some success with it. One of the first things we do is like an applied ethics assignment, which I can bring up here in a second. And it's really just sort of a diagnostic assignment. So that falls in the first week. after sort of doing a course overview and introductions, one of the first things we do, just try to get them doing some fairly hard work right away, um, thinking about things carefully, is an applied ethics assignment. And what we tried last time was assigning Famine, Affluence, and Morality by Peter Singer, and then asking them in 500 to 1500 words to summarize it in as much detail as they can. And so, it's permissive, so you can do it in paragraph form, point form, premise conclusion form. If you have a student who's done some baby logic or something, and we're just trying to give them first a model of, as I say there, a model of clear, persuasive, argumentatively valid, applied ethical reasoning. Encourage them to consider the style, strategy, and structure of a good argument carefully, gauge their current abilities to analyze and reconstruct arguments, and then as we go over it in class, introduce them to other methods of argument analysis by sort of showing them how we would do it. So I also have a handout that I sort of talk them through, and it's just a really detailed premise conclusion form summary of the whole argument in the paper. So they can see, how a philosopher would tackle it, but they can also compare among themselves. And what was good about that was that it seemed like a good kind of wake up call right off the bat, that there were going to be some standards applied to evaluating arguments, that they wouldn't be able to just. We certainly had some students that I think thought they could just kind of bully people into accepting their argument if they were firm enough. And I think that sort of quickly broke them of that impression that this was just going to be a contest of personalities. And so it injected some philosophical argumentative analysis right into the beginning of the course, and that seemed to go well. We're going to try something new this coming year with team captains as well. And we haven't entirely worked out all the details, but what we're thinking is that it would be healthy to have some students who can run a little bit of, they can play middlemen between the teams and the professors. I think there are some people that are too shy to raise concerns directly to teachers, and maybe they don't want to narc on a free rider or something like this. So just knowing some of the interpersonal dynamics in the students we had last year and some of the students that are returning, we want to experiment with having a captain for each of the two teams that we're likely to have. And they will have input in choosing, finalizing the rosters for our teams, helping to set expectations, and enforce sort of norms and expectations in the class on the teams. And then they can also kind of bring concerns to us on behalf of the teams and things like that. So, so we're looking forward to that experiment, and we can report back next time. We're going to let them kind of we're going to have captains self-nominate, candidates for captains self-nominate, and then we'll give them about a week to vote on that. I set it up as a poll in Canvas. So if you haven't, you can do like ungraded surveys, or there is a form of quiz, I guess. So they'll be able to do that for about a week. And then a similar assignment right after that, once we're done getting captains kind of in place. The next assignment would be a regional case packet review, because the cases always apparently they are always published on the Wednesday immediately after Labor Day. So we'll let them have a day where we're just having kind of a fun event, again, to kind of use some of the time. We're having an alum from USU, who is a bioethicist at Harvard now. He's just going to come in and talk to them about bioethics. And we're actually using that as a sort of open event in the department. So some people may learn of Ethics Bowl through this open workshop on bioethics. Just yet another little attempt at recruitment early in the semester. I don't know if we'll get anybody that way, but once the case packets drop, they'll have a couple days to review. We'll discuss them in class, and then that second weekend, they will vote for the 3 cases they want dropped. If you're not familiar with this mechanic, it was new to me last year. In a regional competition every year, the case packet has 15 cases. Those 15 cases drop, and then there's a period of time where teams confer about the cases, and then they can report to the regional bowl their desire for which 3 of the 15 they would like dropped from competition, so that in the end you only have to prepare 12 for
There's
regional
some regional
competition.
variability here.
Oh,
Uh,
there is. Okay,
yeah,
good.
but plenty of regions do it this way. So yeah.
Yeah. So we just wanted to encourage participation right away. So we're making that's like a 1 point assignment. The applied ethics assignment was a 1 point assignment. I'll go into sort of the relative weighting of all of this soon. But then the centerpiece of the course, um, to, as Rachel was saying, to try to build accountability and pacing throughout, is once we get the cases in hand, uh, we probably won't. For now, I just have them listed case 1 through 12. We'll have to update that, of course, when we know which cases we have. But probably what we'll do early, before we know for sure which cases have been eliminated, we'll just start with like the coolest case, assuming that or the coolest cases, assuming that those are not the ones that will get dropped. Um, and we have moved to a 3 day a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 hour slot, so that we can have more frequent, if shorter, meetings, because we think that will work better for pacing the case workshopping in the class. So another thing we're doing is, rather than in the past spending a little bit of time, a little more time on ethical theory and a little more time about strategy and stuff, we kind of want to get right down to business of sort of training them how to workshop a case and then scrimmage it. So you can see most of the schedule through the center of the semester is workshop a case, scrimmage a case, workshop a case, scrimmage a case, with a few exceptions. So I'll just show you what a workshop assignment looks like, and what a scrimmage prep looks like, and then I'll say I'll turn over. If Rachel wants to jump in at any time, go ahead. But then I'll give you a sort of big picture of how these all fit together. So for now, I've had some fun, and let me see. Last year, we did these workshop preps as discussion boards, so that they could, and I know it's here somewhere. Maybe I have to leave the student view.
Mm.
Sorry about this. Yeah, so in the past, we did it as a discussion board. I don't know exactly what would be the analog in some other learning management systems, but it lets students see each other's posts, so that they can kind of like build some momentum in analyzing the cases. They wanted to try that, but I think the lesson that I took from them doing that was that it was good for the students that were keen. They were keen to read each other's work and sort of build off of it, but it encouraged free writing from the students that wanted to do as little work as possible. So this year, so Begun the Star Wars have was something about like space-based satellite weaponry, and Bring Out Your Dead was, I forget what that case was about. So the questions have remained the same this year. So I'm using this. I think actually it's good to constantly have the judges' scorecard in the minds of students, because a lot of them just never think about it from the point of view of judges. And I think the more you can sort of train your team to think about how they are going to be judged, because judging is quite a specific thing. The judge is at least not supposed to do just whatever they want to do. I've judged next to some judges like that, but by and large, judges at Ethics Bowl are pretty disciplined, I think. And so having them sort of think and try to structure their case directly in response to what the judges are looking for has been, I think, a helpful strategy for us. So here are the questions that we asked them to go through in the prep. To name the case and identify the main tensions or problems, minimum 2, max 5 sentences. Then think carefully about which ethical theories or frameworks can best explain or capture what's at stake in those tensions or problems. Then, in applying the frameworks that they've identified in that question, think about the implications that they have of how we should practically respond to the problems identified in the first question. Then think about how an opponent of the above would object most powerfully to the framing that they've chosen. So counter arguments. Then think about responses to counter arguments. How can advocates for the proposals best respond to the counter arguments identified in question 4? And then finally, a summary. And if they do all of that in preparation for our class discussion of the case, they've already sort of gamed out how something pretty close to what a judge would be looking for in a round. We'll share these assignments with you, I believe, after the workshop is done. So, I mean, you can alter this to suit your purposes. Maybe you find this a bit clunky, but I found being really, really explicit with students, especially the students inclined to do less work, has tended to bring out better results from them. On the flip side, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, you unlocked it.
Yeah, let me leave student view.
I'm so proud. I was so proud of myself for having all the deadlines.
Yeah,
So,
good for you. Yeah, so Rachel's
ridiculous.
these are much nicer looking. You can see she's more of a she's got a better design eye than I do in Canvas. But so on the workshop prep, just to sort of look at the syllabus again. So when we do case 1 workshop, the assignment I just showed you with all the questions is due the night before a workshop day. So by midnight the night before, they have to have that done. They have to have already gone through the case themselves and thought about all those questions. The case is worth 1% of their final grade. It's graded pass, fail, and it has to be completed on time. I also decided to try this just because we are trying to transition some past volunteer, sort of more loosey-goosey students into a more accountable framework. We're saying that it's got to be done on time for credit, and it has to be done in any case if they want to grade in the course. So even if they decide to skip an assignment for credit, they have to do all of these assignments if they want to get a grade in the course. That sort of heavy hand may not suit your purposes, especially if you're starting from scratch. You might not have to worry so much about this, but where we are having especially some difficulties with accountability, we're trying to build in a bit more. So the workshop preps them for the class discussion of the case, and then the individual script assignment that Rachel has designed here is what prepares them for the scrimmage, the team scrimmage. So each is going to sort of, each student will have to think about how they would script a whole presentation of the course, or excuse me, of the case. Do you want to say anything about this assignment, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, I really just ultimately these we'll talk about this, but these are going to be populated into a doc. So I really they only need to do, from my view, their part of it. Identify what part of the case they were assigned, and then what are you going to say?
Right.
And then later we'll put this all together in a bigger group document. Yeah.
Good. So at the beginning of the course, because we are trying something different with team captains and case and teams sort of not decided just by us, we want to give them, where we have a lot of students that'll be trying Ethics Bowl for the first time, we want to give them a couple weeks to be workshopping and scrimmaging in randomly assigned teams, just to see what everybody's capable of and let them get to know each other a bit and see which tasks they find most interesting, most attractive, most least intimidating. So we'll have 2 weeks of workshopping and then scrimmaging in random teams. And this again is sort of a clunky way to do it, but so the first time it'll be first, surname by surnames, first half of the alphabet versus second. Then we'll go by first given names and then by middle names. Maybe there's a better way to do that, but it's just an easy way to sort of telegraph to them that they won't be in finalized teams until week 5. So after we've gone through some random scrimmaging and workshopping, we're going to let Rachel and I will sit down with our team captains. The team captains will have talked to the students to get some input. We will come up with team rosters that are finalized, and then we'll give them a class day to talk amongst themselves, sort of look back on how their scrimmages went, who's good at what. set team expectations about the different roles and the workflow that they want going forward. And I think we're inclined to let teams do different things if it works for different groups of students. So, but from there on, we'll have consistent teams, consistent scrimmages, and the first assignment that Rachel mentioned, where they'll put all of their scripts together, is due about halfway through the course. So we have a fall break that falls on Friday, October 10th. We're going to give them until the middle of that weekend to collate or compile all of their scripts into a single script. And the way we're going to do that is, I guess we don't have something good to show you in Canvas yet, but there's a way to embed a Google Doc in Canvas. So that's an easy thing that they can all have access to and edit. But by embedding it in Canvas, it's very clear to them that we will see this. Because some of the looseness in accountability came from teams, each team having its own script that they might show us, might not. It was sort of there were a lot of allusions to these like other documents that lived apart from the course, and it became clear at the 11th hour that there were some students that had done nothing to contribute to that. And so by at least having one version of the whole team script live on the Canvas course, it's very clear to them from the beginning that they won't be able to get away with that kind of stuff, and that they will be accountable for that side of the prep. So the scrimmages and workshops continue right up through to Halloween. We're not doing ethics bowling, at least we haven't decided to yet, but we are doing an ethics bowl themed Halloween dress up on Halloween. And one thing that we've created new this year also is a week before the regional bowl, we've created an assignment, and it's got some fairly significant weight. I think I made it worth 10% of the grade. Last year, it was a bit of a hassle getting students to be adults about making travel plans. And so we're going to have an assignment where there'll be some options that we give them for how they're getting from USU to Weber State. And they will commit to using one of those options a week in advance so that we can make our travel plans. And again, a hard deadline, a significant chunk of the grade based on that. An even more significant chunk of the grade is based on their participation in the actual ethics bowl itself. I think it's worth 35% of the grade. Sort of like a major final, right, at the end of some other courses. We might tweak that, but that was sort of my initial thinking about the weighting. That if a student no-showed the ethics bowl at the last minute, then the best they can do is a D, I think, given that is the main activity of the course.
And it happened.
Yeah, it has happened. That's right.
Not that far-fetched, yeah.
Right. So the way we've paced it, we're just gonna, we'll have only kind of workshopped every case just in time for them to compile the scripts finally, only a couple days before the actual competition. We'll have one day of review to sort of just have people air concerns, we will sort of troubleshoot things, and then we compete. There's a day for recovery after that, competition debrief, and then some of the more traditional kind of normative ethics, some like basic crash course in normative ethical theory. We're going to do that after. I think some people will be surprised to see the order in which we're doing things, and if you want to ask us about that, if you have concerns about that, I'd be interested to talk about it. But I think we found that doing some of that up front seemed to just put off the hard work, and by getting them, we found that getting them, as soon as we got them into actual cases and making them think about being accountable for how they would apply an ethical framework to a specific case, they were much more interested to work out the details. And so then we could actually just give them, little bits of resources along the way. And I think we got a lot more uptake by doing that. So the thought of doing a normative ethics boot camp at the end is to go back and workshop the stuff that gave them the most trouble. So last year, we had a number of students who had studied Kant in ethics classes with both Rachel and myself and some of our colleagues, and yet, none of them were Kantians at heart, and so they really struggled with Kant. Really, yeah, surprisingly so. And so we spent a little bit more time at the end of the semester going through that. So, it's not ideal. Part of it is that like where the regional competition falls in the semester, if you front load with a bunch of ethical theory and then try to workshop cases, you're going to probably feel like you're running out of time to do them justice. So I don't know that this is the only solution. It seems like the best one well, we'll see. It seems like the right one to try next. So, and then we're wrapping up right before Thanksgiving. So, to give a sort of quick breakdown of where how the grade, I guess, is weighted. 1% for the applied ethical assignment, for the voting assignment, 1% for each of the workshop preps, 1% for each of the script preps, 5%, so it adds up to 10% there's those two compiling assignments, so that adds up to 10%, 10% for travel and logistics, 35% for the bowl, 4% for each of those little normative ethics boot camp preps at the end of the semester, and then a 15% engagement grade. And engagement, we said, was based on a combination of timely assignment completion, class preparation, in-class participation, and overall good faith engagement with the materials and the activities of the Ethics Bowl. As one more, this is something I've done in some of my other classes, and we did something like this last year. But again, to sort of encourage a little more pace this throughout the semester, every 3 weeks throughout the semester, there will be an opportunity for a single bonus point where the assignment is to reflect on their learning or to connect it with their own personal experience. And I've had really good experience with this in all of my ethics classes, basically, actually all of my philosophy classes. I've had good experience with this sort of assignment. And I also think that it's contributed to higher evals, and I'm not entirely sure why. But I think they just like the opportunity to talk about themselves and connect, give them a little more free-form activity where they can sort of say anything about how the material is hitting them personally. And I encourage them to use artwork or memes or pop culture references and just sort of think metacognitively about their learning, or else connect it with their own personal experience. And that's all been really good. So we're letting them do that 5 times throughout the semester for bonus points. So I've been talking for a long time. Sorry about that. Appreciate your patience. Rachel, go take it away.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I wanted to just flag that if you go to the API page and go to the Ethics Bowl materials, there's a page dedicated to resources. And this syllabus is available there. I think Mike and I are both happy to have you copy as much of it as you want. Oh, hey, there's Kristen sharing it. Okay, wonderful, in the chat. Go ahead and take what you want and leave what you don't want, but feel free to use it. There's some other syllabi there too. I've got a syllabus from my social ethics course where I just use Ethics Bowl as an assignment in social ethics. So if you want to look at that kind of a model, that'll be available there too.
And if you do use it and experiment profitably in a different way, we'd love to hear from you. If there's a better way of doing it than this, happy to hear some advice. But yeah,
our emails are on our syllabus, so feel free to contact us at those. So we've got about 10 minutes left in the session. We'd love to hear questions and especially experiences that you've had if you teach ethics bowls of class. You're going to have an opportunity to hear from different people doing this kind of thing. Elizabeth.
You said you choose the teams. How does that work for the ones that don't get chosen, and that this just might show that I don't understand how regionals work. Do all the students compete at regionals or just a group? Because I've only been at nationals where there's just, 6 or whatever.
Right. Well, teams can be comprised of up to 6 members, and regions have caps of 2 teams from a school. So you can have, well, okay. A short answer would be you can have up to 12 students competing. Now, you could also do things another way, and I think this is not a way that I would recommend. Mike and I tried this at nationals last year, and in my view, it did not go well. So what we did was we had understudies, or we had partners, and so for different, we ultimately had quite a large team. We brought both teams. We qualified for nationals and brought both teams, and we just had case partners so that we had like 12 people and they would switch in for one another because only 6 can be seated in a round, right? And so one round would have one roster of students and the other round would have another roster. But what ended up happening is there were some real resentments that because if we had a stronger group of students who'd actually done their work, then that roster would do well. But if we had a roster that included a person who had been a free rider, then it would kind of tank their performance at nationals. And so you can find strategies to get more people competing. I don't know, maybe other people have had better experiences with those strategies. It didn't go well for us. But another way you can do it is you can have those students involved, but just not doing the presentation. So they can help to craft the arguments, they can help to do external research. But yeah, the short answer is 12 students really can compete at your region.
I'll just add that so the research component I think would fit well with all the assignments we have because a researcher could still do all of the case workshop preps, all of the script preps, and help compile the team script. You might do something different if you're having to travel a long distance for the regional bowl, and so it's like prohibitive to bring anybody but who you absolutely need. Then you're going to have something else for them to do to make up the credit that they would have for competing. And I'll just say real quick, one idea you could do is like have them maybe working to help you establish connections with local high schools to get the high school ethics bowl started and make it sort of a service learning component of your course. That would take a lot more to discuss and work out, but that is something we have thought about doing in the future.
And if you want to talk more about that, I'm sorry, Mike. If you want to talk more about that, that's session 3 of this education track is service learning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Colleen.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I have a question about how y'all grade. So is there a kind of rubric or criteria you personally use or distribute to the students for, what's going to be B level work, A level work? Does everybody who shows up to the competition get the A on the 35% grade for just going to regionals? You were mentioning the free riders, right? Even if will a free rider expect a C in the course?
I guess my intuition, we might have clashing intuitions here. We didn't talk about this in advance, but I think what we're thinking is most of this stuff is going to be graded credit, no credit. So there's a large quantity of it, and we're finding that where students drop the ball is by just not doing it, right? And so what we're trying to get them to do is prepare. And then on the day of the competition, I guess I'm a little bit uncomfortable grading based on participation or the way that they do at the tournament because some students just get so nervous.
Right. That was kind of one of my concerns.
Yeah. So I think for my thinking that it would be credit, no credit. Mike, was that your?
Yeah, I mean I think the only thing would be like I'd be much more comfortable grading their participation in the ethics bowl based on effort if it was possible to like observe them all day consistently. But as a matter of just necessity, the way it usually goes is coaches that show up to regional bowls and even national bowls sometimes get pulled into judging or moderating. And so you really can't plan on in most cases observing your team throughout the day, and so that further undercuts your sort of position to judge their effort throughout the day. So probably we'll be grading that just for completion. But I will say, so here's a rubric, an example of a rubric that I use for the metacognitive bonus question. I forgot to attach the rubric for the workshop prep, but we did use one last year. It's basically a sort of gen ed, standard gen ed rubric that our university uses in Canvas for general education assignments. It seems to work well with the sort of close reading of the case and sort of analysis of it. So not fancy rubrics, but definitely something that gives them a sense of our expectations.
Sure. Good. Matthew, I think Matthew does this in courses too, so happy to hear from Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah, but first off, this is a great model. Thanks for sharing that. I kind of wanted to go back to one of the things at the beginning because I've set up the course very differently, and I kind of want to share that kind of experience. And that is, so like when you're trying, it sounds like you're doing this as an elective, and you got to teach it as an overload and that sort of thing. What we've done is we found an actual required course to have an ethics bowl version of. So, I mean, it's worth saying I do teach in a college of business and not in a philosophy program. But all of our business students are required to take a senior level ethics course. And so when we designed this, we sort of set up three versions. There's the main version for everyone. There's the special topics in the catalog. So when we want to roll in some current event, like I'm going to teach a version for AI ethics this fall. And then there's an ethics bowl version. And so it's in the catalog and we can just offer it every fall. And it works for students. It works for students because they got to take the course and there's like these three equivalent versions. You just pick which one you want. The other way we've been able to sell it is we've got an experiential learning requirement, both sort of university wide and in the college. And so I was able to get the experiential learning designation from our experiential learning office, and students are also required to take one or two of those as part of their degree plan. So we've created the course in a way that checks a couple of boxes. They get one of their core business classes. They also get their experiential learning credit. Sounds like you could do the same thing with service learning that you're going to talk about later today. And so that's been a good way so that it's just part of my teaching load. There's no overload involved, and students do actually need to take the class. Now, the downside is I don't think there's really a reasonable way for students to take it a second time. Although last year, I wasn't coaching last year because I was hosting, but we did have at least one student from the year before just join up and come to practice when she could. And so it sounded like it could work that way too. So, finding a way to build it, work with the curriculum is good. And if anyone else is in a college or business, you can always sell this because AACSB loves the experiential learning stuff. And so they like that I do this because they can stick it in their AACSB report as well. That's our accreditation agency.
Oh, that's great. Two things on that, Matthew. I would love it if you'd present on that next year, your experiences, because that all sounds wonderful. And two, great. Are you going to be at the service learning session, do you think?
I have just been kind of picking at random, but sure.
I mean, because I'm going to talk through it, but I'd love people with more experience to share their experiences. So great. Okay, well, we're at time. Thank you so much, everyone. If we can provide you with any resources, I mean, that's the plan, actually. We want this to be a session where we're providing you with resources so you can sort of easily pick up one of these courses and not have it be just a mountain of work. No reason for all of us to be reinventing the wheel over and over again. And then, so we're now going to take, let me make sure I'm not giving you crazy information. Let's see.